Stephen said, I was young, I was stupid. I didn't know it was impossible, so I said yes. Now, when Stephen first came to New York after he graduated from college from Carnegie Mellon, he was this young, amazingly gifted songwriter, but he had no context to speak of in the musical theater world. Until luckily he met Shirley Bernstein. And Shirley was Leonard Bernstein's sister. And Shirley listened to his songs, and she really believed in him, and she really supported him. And she got him his first gig on Broadway. He wrote a song for a play called Butterflies Are Free. Does anyone remember that one? Keir Delay played this blind musician who was trying to live on his own in New York City. And he was supposed to be a songwriter, and they needed a song for him to sing to prove he was a songwriter. So Shirley got him that gig. Stephen wrote the song, and he got paid something like $25 a week in royalties, and the song sounded a little bit like this. I knew before you met me, I could love you if you let me. But you touched my cheek and said how easily you'd forget me. You said, butterflies are free, and so are we. Now, Shirley also helped him to get his second gig, which was Godspell. And this is how that happened. Godspell started out as a graduate student's thesis production at Carnegie Mellon. The director was named John Michael Tebelak. And John had gone into a dreary, unfriendly Protestant service somewhere. And he was struck by how dull and joyless this religious service was. So he decided to take the parables of Jesus and tell them in a way that would be exciting and fun and warm and kind of circus-like. And it was a big success for college. It was big enough that Ellen Stewart heard about it, and she invited the production to come run a few weeks at Cafe La Mama in New York. And it just so happened that Stephen Schwartz attended one of those performances. Also attending was producer Edgar Lansbury, who is Angela Lansbury's younger brother. And he immediately saw the commercial potential of the show, but he wanted to turn it into a musical. The original production had a song or two, but it was not a musical. But who would, write the songs? Well, he happened to go to his good friend Shirley Bernstein, who said, I know just the boy you should meet. He's young, he's talented, he has the feeling of the future. You should meet with him. So Stephen went to meet with Edgar Lansbury, and at the end of the meeting, he had promised to write the songs for the score. Good news, right? The only problem was, this meeting took place on March 7th, 1971, and Edgar wanted to go into rehearsals on April 11th, 1971. A month to write the whole score. Stephen said, I was young, I was stupid. I didn't know it was impossible, so I said yes. So the original production of Godspell was amateur in the best sense of the word, in that everyone was doing it for love. The cast was young, the director was young, the writers were young, and it was a very improvisational process in which everybody's input was welcome. Stephen would bring songs in rehearsals hot off the presses, just a lead sheet. The cast would gather around the piano, they'd improvise harmony parts, they'd create the arrangements right there. And Stephen got invited to jump in and direct certain scenes. He said that it was the most pleasant theater experience he ever had in his life. When the show finally opened, the New York Times gave it a bad review, but every other review was a rave, and the show became a hit, and it basically has not stopped running around the world ever since. Maybe that's why Broadway hated him. His next idea was something that he'd actually been thinking of back in college, based on the story of the son of the Emperor Charlemagne, Pippin. And at the time, Stephen was listening to all these great singer-songwriters of the early 70s, like Joni Mitchell and Paul Simon, and he thought that Pippin should really be about the young people of the 70s, who were trying to find their way in a cold and scary world. He needed a book writer, so Shirley introduced him to Richard O. Herson, and they hit it off right away. Then the producer Stuart Ostro, it just turned out, was looking for a new project and was looking for a project that would really appeal to the young people. So Shirley introduced them. Stuart listened to the songs. He said, I'm going to produce this, and I'm going to get a big-name director. So he went to Hal Prince, who turned him down, and then he went to Michael Bennett, who turned him down, and then he went to Bob Fosse, who said yes. Now, Bob Fosse, at this point, he had directed and choreographed Sweet Charity on Broadway. He'd also made the movie of Sweet Charity, which wasn't a great success, but he was just in the process of finishing editing his second movie, which was Cabaret, which was about to make him one of the biggest names in directing, both on Broadway and in Hollywood. So when Stephen Schwartz found out that Bob Fosse was going to direct their show, he called up Roger and he said, guess what? Bob Fosse agreed to direct our show. And Roger said, this is the last happy day we're going to have on this show. And it turned out he was right. Fosse and Schwartz were just so different in so many ways. I mean, Stephen was 24 and Fosse was in his 40s. Fosse was this show business veteran who'd been around, who'd seen it all, and Schwartz was this bright-eyed, eager newbie. But it's more than that. It's philosophically, Bob Fosse was cynical, and he really felt, if you think about his shows, it's always, it's all show business. Whereas Stephen was young and idealistic, and he was also probably a little bit full of himself, as 24-year-olds tend to be. In any event, from the beginning, Pippin was locked in this battle sort of for the soul of Pippin, which Bob Fosse ended up winning because Bob Fosse was the bigger name. So Pippin started out being about this young, idealistic guy trying to find his way, and it ended up being more and more about the cynical manipulator, the leading player. And Pippin himself as a character became kind of a one-dimensional nudnik. And so instead of being about young people's search for meaning in life, it was really kind of making fun of that.